Vero Latina partners with working women and mamas alike to guide them in achieving fulfilling career and life goals through financial empowerment, professional or leadership coaching, and personal wellness. Find the unique coaching you need to succeed.
You're listening to Vero, Cecy, and Irene, and we are Level Up Latina. Welcome to another episode of the Level Up Latina podcast. This is a short, sweet episode 4 of the summer series, episode 161. This is part of the series where our listeners, you guys, send us topics for us to discuss. So today we have another one to discuss and keep it short and sweet. Today's topic is how to navigate being the eldest child and feeling responsible to care for parent. And that could also include the elderly care. But before we jump into the topic and chime in, ¿cómo están ustedes, mujeres chulas?
Feeling good. Feeling vibey. I'm vibing with you girls today.
Feeling good, feeling summery, excited to be here.
Yes, we're on a roll. Today we wanted to chat about this, how to navigate being the oldest. And I guess I'll start because I am the oldest in my family. I'm the oldest of 3. I am about almost 5 years older than my sister, the middle child, and then about 8 years older than my brother. I feel like now it's not, the age difference doesn't show and I don't feel it as much, but growing up for sure, because I was, a teenager and they were, super little still in elementary school. So I always saw that change or that difference then. For me, I think being the eldest meant different things at different times. Growing up, it was always that I was the interpreter, the translator for everything and anything. Documents that arrived, appointments. It was during the time that when I was a teenager, my dad had a workers' comp case and I was constantly pulled out of school, junior high school, to attend these meetings with his lawyer. And I know that there was a point where I would feel frustrated because I felt like I was missing out. I was doing, I was in school. And by high school, I was already like super disciplined. So being pulled out, I hated it, but I was like, I know my parents needed it. So I would be pulled out of these out of school essentially to come to San Francisco. This is where the attorney was, and to meet with him, to talk about him, and to figure out how to translate things that I had never heard of. That was frustrating. That was how do I do this? How do I tell my parents what's going on? How do I give them bad news, essentially? If things weren't going, their way, or how do I, how to say those things? And it was just, I remember it being difficult and just having to go through the motions and, that helping them in that regard, being taken to, when they had an appointment with a bank about refinancing the house, or even, I'm just think now they're coming to me, the memories, or even to purchase a car. Ahí estaba yo también, yo que iba a saber, pero ahí estaba to translate for my parents. So that was me growing up and, having that responsibility, and taking care of being the translator. And then what happened was that when I was 17, I left to college. So then that responsibility fell onto my sister, because she was at home, and she was the middle child. And I don't really remember my brother really helping out in that regard with translating. I just remember I left and then it fell to my sister, and it stayed there for years to come, because what happened after was that my sister, got pregnant, got married, and then just stayed living with my parents for I don't know how many years after that, probably 15 years, ahí con todos sus hijos. So then she had to basically live a life where she had to, take care of herself, take care of her kids, take care of her husband, and then take care of my parents too, of their needs. Because during that time, it was also where when my parents retired, and well, actually, they turned the age of retirement. They didn't officially retire; they just kind of fell into it. My dad, had this accident, and he never went back to work, so he just kind of fell into, being at stay-at-home father. And then my mom, she was working and she was being the breadwinner, but then she also stopped working at a point in time where, she developed breast cancer and she went through, the treatment. And I'm talking about maybe like 14 years ago when that happened. And so she stopped working, ya nunca regresó a trabajar. So that responsibility fell to my sister. And I feel like she kind of had the more intense. She had, maybe, I wouldn't say a tougher part, but I felt because when my parents were getting older, you know how older people get, que están más set in their ways, no escuchan, maybe opinions of other. They're just like, they're set in their ways. So I could see where maybe that was, hard for her. And she just felt like, I don't want to say burden, but yes, it weighed heavy on her. It would have heavy on her. And we were talking about this offline where, finally she makes this move. She moves out with her kids. And then a change in my parents' lives happens. My mom becomes wheelchair bound, and she sort of felt guilty, but it wasn't the plan. Like, that wasn't her plan for her to move out. And then this happens. But I applaud her because she didn't move back. Like, this is something that she wanted to do, have that boundary and move out. She didn't move back with my parents. She's, she helps as much as she can. At this point in my parents' lives, I felt like I had to step in and not micromanage, but kind of set out schedules of like, who's going to do what. My dad can't do it alone. Let's share the responsibilities. Like, who's gonna do what. Let's stay in our own lane so that we're not like, okay, who's gonna take her to this appointment, who's gonna do that. So I stepped in and I started being the person that's like emailing her doctors, asking questions. Now I'm like, taking her to chemo. Well, not now, like that's like an appointment that we all kind of take turns doing, but it's hard and it's exhausting. And I know I've said this in the past where almost a year ago, like, our lives completely changed because of this turn of events. And it was exhausting, and it was also like mentally challenging. And in December, so I started seeing a therapist. And I felt that has helped me so much. I have my weekly sessions with her, and there's times where I'm like, I don't really know what to talk about, but algo sale, right? And I just get to vent, and I get to, just experience this with this person that I've never met in person, but talk about how I'm feeling. And that has helped me tremendously, because this for sure took a burden on me. And it's hard to see your mom, that, an active lady that loves to, irse a Mexico a cada rato, and like just seeing my mom being wheelchair bound y en la cama, like, oh my God, me destrozó. But seeing and motivating her, and like being there when I can, and knowing like, okay, pues yo voy el domingo a bañarla, like that's my little routine that I've set up, like has just made, and therapy, again, I'll say, like, has made it more manageable, physically, también mentally. Like, oh my God, if I, again, we're all about therapy here. Si lo recomendamos 100%. Y eso, it has helped me so much. Just because, again, it's been a lot. It's been a lot to try to be that caregiver to not just my mom. I feel like my dad too also needs it, like that little extra push, or like, hey papi, like, vete a caminar, we're here, we're handling this, like, go ahead and do that. But being that for my parents now, and then taking care of my home, working full time, having a business, como, it was a lot. So I was like, I wasn't exercising, like, pero como que at the point where I started like that therapy journey, like, como que everything kind of fell into place, and I started to create boundaries in a sense, and like, okay, I can't add more to my plate than what I already have. So for work I had to do, certain things like, can I take one every 3 weeks? Can I work from home on the Thursdays that I'm supposed to be in the office, but can I work from home so that I can take my mom to these appointments? Yes. With my coaching clients, like, okay, I want to be a good coach. So I don't want to have more on my plate than what I can handle. So, okay, I'm limiting to a certain amount of coaching clients per month, por ejemplo. And then at home, también what it meant, okay, it meant that, we're going to have cooking schedules. Who's going to cook dinner? And then with the girls también, okay, I take them to school, you pick them up on these days. So I see that's how I was able to kind of navigate this new life of being like a caretaker to my parents and my mom who's ill and going through this. But yeah, it's been tough, and I know that to our listeners are probably going through this as well, or are getting ready to be caretakers, or going through an illness that affects their parents, and it's hard to see, them age también, eso también. So anyway, thank you to our listener who asked about this, because I know we're all going through it at different points. También ustedes, no?
Yeah, totally. I can agree like 1,000%. And thank you, Cecy, because I think you answered it. Like the episode could end and it would be full and complete. Like, thank you, Cecy. Like, she's the oldest. She took this responsibility on. She's caring for not one, but both of her parents. But I do believe that wherever you are in the hierarchy of having your siblings, like I'm the youngest of 6, and yes, I feel that I have some responsibility in my mom's elder care, and more as I get older. She gets older and there's more to do and more to help with. My brother, who's the next one in line after me, actually is the one that stayed home. So he's the 4th in line, and yet, or no, he's the 5th in line, and yet he is the one that never moved out, had a daughter. His daughter is there, and back and forth. And so he takes such a burden on my mom's care and just taking care of her. She doesn't see very well. She doesn't walk very well. Those things have hurt her spirit, but also she's full of spirit. So it's an interesting process navigating how they grow and they change, and they're not as mobile as you remember, as strong as you remember. Her not seeing has been a huge deterrent in her life, because it took her independence. Her not driving, she took hard. Her cooking less, she's taken hard. Like, it has changed her whole identity to grow old. So, Cecy, I did not even know you were going to bring this up, but thank you for bringing up therapy, because I too went on a therapy journey, and part of it was these years that I was getting closer to my mom and trying to be there for my mom and trying to be in service to my mom, who can sometimes be a complicated person. She lived a whole life and she's got all this baggage, and her life wasn't easy. And I knew that in order to be the best daughter to her and care for her in her elder years, I would need to be processing feelings and emotions behind the scenes so I could be the best person when I'm in her presence. And so this last weekend, I went to Mexico with my mom and my sister, and it's a blessing to be able to do that. Cherish those moments, because I know that as hard as it is, and as much as it feels like having another child again and caring for a child, it's beautiful, and I'm happy to do it. And I know that these moments she'll cherish, but I also see the burden that she feels she's putting on us. I know that she feels bad. She apologizes more than I want her to. And I'm just trying to show her a lot of patience. So I know, Cecy, your situation with the cancer and appointments and all that, I admire you. It's so noble. Mine's is not that difficult. My mom is okay. She's just older. But I know the courage that it takes, the toll on your family, the patience that it takes. I think of my brother all the time who lives there. Anyone who has to live with their elderly parents, like, my goodness, like, it's every day. It doesn't stop. And so we see you, we admire you, and want you to do something like therapy. So find a coach, find a therapist, find a like-minded friend. Maybe you don't feel like you need therapy, but you need to discuss this all the time. And if anything, vent about the feelings that come up. You're not a perfect person, and your parents are going to frustrate you. Like, caring for elderly people, they're harder than kids, because boy, can they talk like adults and they have memories.
Yeah.
Don't let them forget anything.
They
And
trigger you.
yeah,
Oh my God,
yeah.
yeah.
Vero said it, the TTs today, therapy and being triggered. Those are the 2 T's of this episode. Like, your parents are also going to drive you crazy, your siblings and their opinions about the whole matter, or their engagement or lack of engagement. Again, I said I'm with 6. There's 6 of us siblings, and we're all handling it differently. We're all engaged in different parts of my mom's care, some not at all. I don't know what that brings up for them, right? I don't know what the feelings are, but boy, can your parents be triggering. So you need therapy if you can get it, or just friends to help you. But yeah, we have to all navigate navigate feeling responsible for our parents. And one thing I'll say is go all in now that you can, because I have clients that regret now that their parents are gone, that things didn't go the way they wish they would have. So I wanted to give that as the tip of the day. Like, if your parents are still alive, it is a blessing. Like, do not take that for granted and be in their lives, even if it's hard to be in their lives. But get the therapist, the friend, the spouse, the person that can help you through it. If it's important to you, maybe you have a relationship where you don't want to be in your elder parent's life and you're watching them suffer from afar. Well, if that's your choice to not be there, then don't suffer for it after. If you choose not to take care of an elder parent, that's a decision too, and that's a boundary, and you have to be okay with it, but please don't regret that later. So take inventory on your life, get the therapy that you need, show up for them in the way that works for you. Like Cecy, I am a schedule person. I am so there for my mom. As long as I can put it on my schedule, I have to remind her all the time, Mom, I practically work for myself. Mom, my calendar's mine. Like, no, Mom, don't worry. Like, I'm not at work. Like, I'm free. Like, I'm free as a bird. What do you need? When do you need to go? I can take you. She always thinks like I have this mythical boss that is mad at me because I'm taking time off. And it's like, Mom, there is no mythical boss that cares that I had to go to Kaiser at 8 a.m. and at 8 p.m. Like, Mom, I'm here for you. So whatever you can do. Now, am I there every day? No, right? I don't do that job. And I thank God, because I probably would go crazy. But what I can do, I do it with joy, and I take on the responsibility, and I know it, knowing that she will not last forever. So did I do the most I could do in the way that helped me and her, and my mental health was protected too, because it's a lot and it's triggering, and that I could feel happy after I have been with her, leaving the experience feeling okay.
I will say, right now that you said like, oh, if I would living there with my parents, I don't think I could handle it. Yeah, tampoco yo. And I want to say, earlier we talked about boundaries and setting boundaries. I remember around December when, toda la familia se juntó in my parents' house, and my uncles were suggesting like, why don't you guys move in like with your parents, but ahorita to help and, to be here physically. And I said no. Because we created this life that we're comfortable living in San Francisco. Like, nuestros años nos costó to do that, and to, be working here in the city, living here in the city, sending our girls to here in the city. And it's not, not that I'm going to go backwards, but no, like that was the boundary that I set. Like, see, I mean, I couldn't go back, I just couldn't go back with my parents and just living in that house that there's no boundaries there. Okay. No boundaries, vienen todos, all the kids. So I could not. So, ¿cómo lo hago? It's because I'm sorry. So what do I do? It's like, I go, during these appointments that I take her, and I go on the weekends. Ahorita no he podido ir because of COVID, pero pues, ya iré. But yeah, so I mean, that's what I do. Like when I can't go, then I message my siblings. I'm like, hey, no voy a poder ir a bañarla. Can you go this weekend? And luckily my sister, I mean, obviously my brother can't do that, but my sister is close enough in the same city where she comes in and helps out. So yeah, no, I think it's part of also setting those boundaries and be able to manage this elder care.
Well, just listening to you and Irene right now, going over like, you're the eldest, Irene is the baby in the family. I'm also a baby in the family. And right now my sister's here with me. So shout out to my big sister.
Woohoo!
Love you, Gabby. Esa la Gabby. And my sister took on a lot of responsibility. My sister, we went away, like my brother went to college. He's the middle one and never came back. He went to Cal, stayed up in the Bay Area. He lives in Oakland, got married, has his 3 kids, and he has his life established in the Bay Area. And there was, por un buen tiempo, he was like, I'm going to be moving back to LA. And for, I left to college. I went to Santa Barbara, but I ended up coming back. But then, my life was just, in a sense, like the way it developed or transpired was just very different than how my sister was. And my parents became very, como se dice, reliant on her. Very dependent on my sister. And I feel that she took it on very like unselfishly and was like, okay, I'll help my parents. They've been helping me out, like all these things. But I feel like for her, she definitely started setting her boundaries later when I came back from Santa Barbara, and she was like, all right, homegirl, you're back. You need to help with this. So my sister was always like my second mom, like our relationship. Now we have more of a friendship than before. And I'm very glad for it, but I've learned to understand where she's coming from. Like we packed up our bags and left, and then she got left behind with our parents who started getting older. And I feel that it's such a tricky thing because you start seeing them getting older and not being able to do the things that they were able to do for themselves. And then you have to take in and start doing it. And it could get frustrating and you could be like, well, ¿por qué lo tengo que hacer? And the thing is that like, there's this whole chapter in our lives when we're kids that we don't remember, like all the things our parents had to do for us. And maybe there's a reason for us not to remember it, but like all this caring, like feeding and our parents keeping us alive against our will when we're little, and I think now as a mom, as a parent, I am realizing all of this. Like my kids are not going to remember this. And it's hard to put an expectation on them to care for me when they grow up, and make them do these things and like, oh, ¿cuál me va a cuidar? Like I even catch myself talking to my kids and telling them, a ver, ¿cuál de los tres me va a cuidar cuando esté viejita?
Oh, it's embedded in you.
Yeah, because it's embedded in me. And I catch myself saying it. I'm like, and Otto tells me like, our responsibility is to love them, raise them, give them everything we can, and let them go on into this world. And if they choose to visit us, if they choose to call us, if they choose to be part of our lives, once they're adults, then that's even a plus. But our job is pretty much to love them and do this and then kind of like, all right, here you go, world. Here are our children, But it's got to be really hard on our parents to kind of become dependent on their children, knowing that they were the ones that were giving everything to us at one point, But it's a toll. And I hope that for the eldest in the family, you also need to know that I recently had this conversation with, and it came out of like something super like just silly, or in the sense of like scheduling, right? Like I now that I have kids and they're little, it's really hard. Like, so I have to make sure like if my mom or my dad have an appointment, my dad's very self-sufficient. He gets on the bus, does his thing. It's more my mom, and she has like this nervous anxiety thing that she gets. So it's always like we at least have to be there with her. So if something comes up, I'm like, hey, just give me a heads up and don't schedule anything before 10 because it's really hard in the morning to get these kids anywhere. And like, I just need to get myself together and be prepared. And I don't want my mom to be late or anything. So we don't mind. And the thing is that I had a conversation with, it was with my nieces, and they're older now also, like, but they've been included into this shared responsibility of the grandparents, right? And I could see how that even is a toll on them because they're like, well, why do I have to step in and do this? Like I still have things to do. So I'm glad that they kind of know a sense of limit and boundaries. But at the same time, it's like, if you're able to do it, please help, one of the two. If it means you watch my kids and I take your grandparents to the doctor, great. But I'm glad that my sister, in a sense, was able to share that she needed help because she had taken on that, in a sense, that responsibility for so long that, we have to be a little more in tune with like, it's not just one sibling that's responsible. Our parents are a shared responsibility. I have a friend whose mom suffered a stroke and she has a brother, and he'll be like, well, no, you have to take care of mom. I have a family. And it's like, I understand, that you have a family. However, like mom needs help from both of us. And she's a professional, thriving professional, but she's had to put so much stuff on hold for herself because her sibling is like, well, I have my wife and my kids. Like, I can't really help with mom. But it's like, okay, what do you mean you can't help with one appointment? What do you mean you can't be here for her physical therapy? So she had to change her whole life to be able to help her mom out. And there's no one willing to help. And the thing is that as siblings, we need to be more on it. Like, dude, thank you, Cecy, for helping with mom and dad. Like, how about I take it over? Like, I know that the responsibility, my brother hasn't had to deal with this because he doesn't live here. You just mentioned like, well, Manny, I don't think he's ever done it. And the thing is that, and Irene's like, well, my brother lives with her, so he's taken at some of that just because he happens to be there. The thing is that this expectation doesn't fall on the men. It falls on the women in the family. And I feel that it really sucks because the Latinos, in the Latino culture, Mexican culture, whatever culture you are, Spanish-speaking culture, it's like the women are the caretakers. The women take on this, assume the responsibility. But at the same time, it's like, well, this is all of our parents, not just my parent. We all are active participants, and it's a shared responsibility. Your kids are your responsibility. Our parents, they're our responsibility. So it's very different.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, even now, I was saying that we take turns and whatnot. And right now, I mostly take her to chemo appointments, but then she has other appointments. Like she had to get like her tooth pulled out. My sister took her to that, and then she had to go to the dentist, and then my brother took her to that. So we share responsibilities. And so when I can't, I tell my mom like, oh, ask Manny or Diana, and then she's like fast to ask Diana right away. And I'm like, and I've told her, I'm like, Mommy, if anything, I think Manny has more flexibility because he owns his own business. Like he can schedule appointments, como sea, and he has more flexibility. My sister has to report to somebody. I'm my own boss within my department, but then I have my ED that, I have to report to essentially. But, so I had to kind of like mold her and coach her a little bit, como quien dice, like, don't feel bad to ask your son too. Like he's also in the same city, like he's also willing to help. And he, I know my brother has said like, hey, if you can, like, let me know, just let me know ahead of time so that I don't book or that I can cancel my appointments. So I had to ahí meter yo mi cuchara and decir like, hey, you can ask him too,
My last thing is like everything is it revolves around similar things. Like we started off our summer series with boundaries, right? And this in itself is learning your boundaries, knowing your limits, and holding people accountable, like being like, yo, take ownership of this, and you too partake in this family. You too were raised by these people. It's not going to be like you could just get away with it, So we need each other, just like that. We need you. Ask for the help, and don't be afraid to tell people like the truth. Like this is heavy to deal with, not a burden, but it's a lot to deal with. And especially when you have sick parents, it's like, it takes a toll on you, like seeing your parents suffer or seeing your parents go through that. Like you need the support of everyone you can. So hold people to their own, be like, yo, I get it. I respect that. How about I take care of your kids today and you can help with mom?
100%. Mm-hmm. Well said. Yeah. Pues gracias, muchachas, por compartir. Thank you to our listener who suggested this topic. If you like the episode, if you want to comment more or add your own little nuggets, go ahead and do it on our social media pages. On Facebook and Instagram, our handle is @LevelUpLatina. On Twitter is @Latina_up. You could also email us. Our email is admin@LevelUpLatina, or you could also always find our information and all our good stuff, our even our gear también on our website, leveluplatina.com. Ahí you can book your assessment for one-on-one coaching, or you could also join our monthly group sessions, which are called the Guilt-Free Squad. También we're having an awesome event on September 24th in LA. It's going to be a networking brunch. We're going to have a great panel of women and also giveaways. So make sure you purchase your ticket on our website. And lastly, if you're a small business and you want to promote your business on our podcast, hop on over to our site to purchase your business shout out. And with that, chicas, that's a wrap. This is episode 4 of our Level Up Summer series. So thank you for listening. Thank you for chiming in. Don't forget to level up.
Y la ves la colita this summer. It's hot and sweaty.